to the YourVote candidate debate for the federal election here on Your TV. Tonight I'm joined by our local candidates that have been registered for the federal election in Parry Sound-Muskoka. And I'd like to welcome to our studio our candidates, Scott Aitchison with the Conservative Party of Canada. Scott, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Jordy Sabat with the Liberal Party of Canada. Jordy, thanks very much for coming in.
Hi.
And Heather Hay with the NDP Party of Canada. Thanks very much, Heather, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for joining us, all of you. We're going to jump into the rules really quick here. For some of you, you've been through this before and you understand this, but for the newbies coming in, we'll go through this. So the rules of engagement, a reminder that, first of all responses will be timed by our wonderful timekeeper behind me, Hallie Clover with the Huntsville Lake Bays Chamber of Commerce. I will be politely cutting you off if you go over your time. As mentioned, if you're not finishing answering your question or giving your statement, that's within the time period. There will be a debate afterwards that you can continue the point that you'd like to make if you would like to. For every question, each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond. And the same with the debate period, all candidates will be cut off once we reach that 2-minute period for the debate time frame. In all scenarios, you'll be provided a signal from Hallie, which she will exemplify right now. Just try to keep your eye in this area. That's why it's white, so you can catch your attention. I know you're looking at your camera, but just try to keep an eye on it. Also, please respect that during a specific candidate's answer, other candidates are not allowed to jump in and make a point. There will be an opportunity during the debate period for that, but if there's any interruption during another candidate's answering period, I will be penalizing that candidate by taking time away from them. Now, again, as I mentioned, during the debate, it is a debate period, but we would ask that you respect other candidates' opportunity to finish what they are saying. If they start taking over the debate, I'll cut them off and provide the other candidate the opportunity to speak. So again, it's a respect on both sides. If you'd like to make a point, please make it in as quick a time as possible so other candidates have the opportunity to jump in as they would like. We're also going to have an opportunity to hear what you have to say about issues that matter to you before you head to the polls. But first, let's start with your introductions. Now, of course, we did a random choice of selection of who will be starting out, and Scott Aitchison was selected first. So Scott, you have the floor and you have 2 minutes.
Thanks, James, and thank you for hosting this to Your TV. To all the Chambers of Commerce and all the other partners, thank you for doing this. I think this is important for our communities and for the election. So I just want to say that I've served my community and the broader community for decades now as a district councillor, as a mayor, and as a community builder as well. And all through those years, we've worked together to recover from floods, whether it's fighting to save our hospitals, we've worked together and we continue to do that. We've always worked together. We've tried to build some affordable housing, particularly in Huntsville and the Muskoka side. But you know something, despite all those efforts, life has just gotten too expensive here in Parry Sound-Muskoka. I see too many people come into my office in tears, work their whole lives to pay for their house, and they own their house. And I might have gone to school with their kids even, and they used to donate to the local food bank, and now they find themselves having to use that food bank because of outrageously high costs for food. You know, there's obviously world issues that have caused inflation, but the policies of this Liberal government for the last 9 years, with carbon taxes, increasing regulation, they have made life more expensive. And now we see that they're talking about making life cheaper, more affordable. But I just don't buy it. This is a consequential election. Not only has 9 years of Liberal government made life more expensive, now we have the existential threat of Donald Trump, which is making life even more uncertain and also making things more expensive again. It's a wake-up call for Canada. It's a wake-up call for all of us to get our act together, to make it easier to do business with each other and within our communities, and to make life more affordable again, and to stand up to Donald Trump and his crazy rhetoric. We need to stand together, and we need to make life more affordable for Canadians, and we need to make sure that our paycheck goes farther, and we need to reduce the burden of government on everyday life. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and I'm looking forward to the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Jordy, you're up next. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Jordy Saba. I'm the Liberal, and I am a volunteer firefighter here in Parry Sound-Muskoka. I am a dad. I am also a small business owner. I got my start working for the BBC World Service in Afghanistan. I then went and helped build a company that produced hundreds of hours for Discovery with the co-creator of Shark Week. We shot all over the world, and it became a multi-million-dollar company, which I'm very proud of. And then I became a small business owner, producing film and television, and also doing corporate strategy, working with CEOs from BMO, Deloitte, and Magna. And I'm here because I'm really excited to add to our story. I have met so many of you who are creating and changing the world and our own riding, and I believe that we need to tell that story in Ottawa. We need to say we're not just cottagers living on the lake, we are innovators, we are builders, and we have one of the highest concentrations of small businesses in Ontario. So I'm happy and excited to share that part of our story and really bring that attention to us and start changing the world and changing our country. Thank you.
Jordy, thank you very much. Heather, last but certainly not least, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for everyone who has coordinated to make this event possible. Who am I? I'm an NDPer from the get-go. As a child, I worked on campaigns. My dad was a candidate here for a few elections, and I've worked as a campaign manager, working in the electoral process. That's as an NDPer. And one of the reasons I stayed with the NDP, not just because of how I grew up, but was because the party's policies and procedures are decided by the membership. They're not decided by a group of elite off in a back room. It's decided by the members through contentious debate and a raucous convention. But I feel like it's the party that best represents me as a queer woman living in a rural community. And part of my service has included volunteering. I was the president for Canada Pride, creating or coordinating with the other sectors in our community to create a $10 million capacity building fund. And I am the coordinator for Elder Abuse Prevention Muskoka here in Muskoka, helping seniors fight against the poverty and abuse that they experience here in Muskoka.
Heather, thank you very much for that. We appreciate that. So, candidates, we're going to move on to the questions. And as mentioned before, because Scott had the opportunity to start with the opening bio, Jordy, you're going to have the opportunity to have the first answer to this question. And we're going to move into it here. So, tariffs are top of mind for many across Canada, and we've heard this many times. And in Parry Sound-Muskoka especially, businesses are concerned about how this will impact and affect their ability to cover their own costs. Now, what will you do if you're elected as the next MP for this region to make sure that their worries are addressed and on the Hill, and to keep these pillars in the community from facing dire economic straits? And Jordy has mentioned you have 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm excited by what I have learned from the businesses in this riding. I think Mark Carney is the best choice to stand against Donald Trump, and has proven that recently with his bond strategy to back him off a little bit. And I'm also excited that he's breaking down the interprovincial trade barriers. And I'm excited because a lot of the small businesses I spoke to here, that's a game changer for them. Right now, we have a distiller in our area who has the only Kahlua in Canada because they pulled it. It was an American product, and she is struggling to get that through different provinces. So removing those trade barriers for our businesses here is a big game changer. It's a huge game changer for this country. It would raise GDP by 4 to 7%. So I think that's the first thing we can do. That's our Canada Day goal. And I think that's gonna help, in addition to also looking at simplifying paperwork. As a small business owner, I drown in paperwork. So I think that's a little personal initiative of mine. I think what Mark Carney is doing, what Prime Minister Carney is doing right now, when I spoke to him about it, and the way that he's doing it, is a fantastic strategy that I think will help us through.
Fantastic. I forgot to mention too that our wonderful timekeeper is going to flash that card at 15 seconds, just to give you a warning first, so you don't have to wrap up when you see it the first time.
Sorry, I panicked.
That's okay. I apologize. It was my mistake for not clarifying that to begin with. So there is a flash at 15, and then there'll be another one to cut you off. So, Heather, you are next up as we go in the clockwise motion.
NDP believes in small business in Canada and supporting small businesses by reducing some of the interprovincial barriers and also increasing the markets that we have, access to the markets that we have across the country and with other nations. We've learned that being too dependent on one avenue for one market is causing us a little bit of stress right now. So finding diverse markets throughout the world, not just looking to Western Europe, but also Mexico, South America. There's other markets that we can access and build up the industries within Canada as well as beyond.
Thank you, Heather. Scott, you have an opportunity.
Thank you. I think that what we need to do locally is what I will continue to do. One of the things I did is I posted on my office website a map showing all the local producers and growers of products right here in Parry Sound-Muskoka, and encourage people not just to buy local, but to buy locally made. So that's an important thing to do locally. I'll continue to meet with local producers of goods, whether it's Crofters in Parry Sound or Hubert's Maple up in Sundridge. I've met with a number of business owners to talk about very specific things that they need help with. And I also think more broadly, we need to look at very seriously opening up new markets. One of the reasons the federal government was created back in 1867 was to open up new markets for Canadian producers, mostly agriculture at the time. We've lost sight of that. We've relied too much on the Americans, and we need to open up those markets. And we also must eliminate those interprovincial trade barriers. It's still easier to make something in Parry Sound-Muskoka and sell it to Alabama than it is to sell it to Quebec. That has to change.
All right. As mentioned, now we have our debate period. Of course, it is a debate, but again, if you can respect other people's opportunities to finish their answer. 2 minutes from our timekeeper, and the floor is open.
I don't think you heard too much disagreement amongst all of us here on that particular file.
That was a particularly
Very cohesive
We're
answer.
all on
yeah.
Team Canada here.
I will say, just in general, that I think we do need to look past America, and that we actually have a lot of free trade agreements already in place that we don't really use. Mm-hmm. And I think that we've been reliant since 1927 on the States, and we've sort of gotten very reliant on. I know my business is 90% reliant on the States, and I will say this, that I've had the tap turned off 2 or 3 times in my career, and it does hurt. And my worry is that I hope we see this through, because if Donald does turn the tap back on, we can get complacent very, very quickly. So I'm really excited that we are thinking by Canadian, we are thinking to look past the US, and that we are finding our feet again and taking that leadership position. And I think we should just keep seeing it through, because it's going to be a bit difficult.
I want to add to that. I think it's very important for us to find other markets for Canadian products, but it's important to remind everybody in Canada that we've negotiated more free trade agreements than any other country in the world. The Stephen Harper government negotiated dozens of them. In fact, when the UK left the European Union, they called us for help on how to negotiate trade deals because they didn't have that staff anymore. But the fact of the matter is, even with those new trade agreements that we've negotiated all over the world, our trade with the Americans has gone up. So it's important to do this on dual tracks. Mm-hmm. It's important to be opening up new markets, but it's also important to stand up to Donald Trump. We can't just back down and cower. Our niceness can't be mistaken for weakness, and we will stand up to him.
Heather, any response?
Standing up to Trump when you're endorsed by him seems a little bit disingenuous, but there we go.
All right, I think we're going to call it there, and we're going to move on. And thank you very much for the opportunity for that first question. The second one, we are sticking with tariffs. And I remind you that many Canadians have been struggling to pay bills since before the tariff threat came about from the US. And now many residents of Parry Sound and Muskoka wonder how they'll get food on the table as prices continue to rise. So what will you do to ensure that your residents aren't finding themselves looking for help to cover their needs? Heather, you have the opportunity to start this one.
In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was enough funding that we could we could purchase a home, we could send our kids to school, we could make it on a single income. And we're finding that now even with dual incomes, there just isn't enough money. And the reason for that is because we are not taxing the wealthy. And so that means that the government isn't getting the funding it needs to put on the programs to support the community, and the working class and the middle class are getting starved as the money gets siphoned off to the 1%. So changing the tax laws to make it more equitable so that the rich are paying their share is a key portion of ensuring the support of those who don't have the access to means here.
Thank you, Heather. Scott?
That's a classic Liberal talking point about the government not having enough revenue. Part of the problem we have in this country is the government has their priorities wrong. This Liberal government for the last 9 years hired 100,000 more civil servants, increasing the public service by 30% while still spending $20 billion on consultants. This is money that could be used to support people in need. Food bank use in our area has skyrocketed. So it's, I think, number one, important to support those food banks, and I encourage everyone to do that all the time. I do personally. But the fact of the matter is, food is expensive in part because of outrageous Liberal taxes. So now they've reduced the carbon tax to zero, but it still exists. It's still on the books. I'll tell you, the only reason they did that is because of Pierre Poilievre and Scott Aitchison fighting against these carbon taxes that have made everything more expensive for all the years that they've had it. We need to get the cost of government out of our back pockets. We need to make sure that people can afford food and not tax it so they can't afford it.
Jordy, fittingly, the Liberal response.
The response. I think that we need to focus on, when I talk to residents here and small business owners in this region, I find that they are aware that they need to pay taxes because they could affect the social programs. My mother's teeth are fixed on the dental program. That's expanding now. Pharmacare, $10 a day daycare. These are the things that help people, and I think a lot of us realize that is where that money needs to go. Can we do a better job? Of course, you can always do a better job, but I think those programs don't need to be cut. Those programs help people. I also think grocery prices is a corporation trying to make a lot of money, not necessarily a government, and I think that's why those prices remained high. But I think focusing on that, helping small businesses with their corporate taxes, seniors with their plan, and EI looking at that again, I think those are the ways that we can help people in our area.
All right, we'll open the floor to a 2-minute debate.
I think it's great that Jordy has read the Liberal talking points. They make life more expensive after 9 years and then tell you you're lucky. Then they tell you you're lucky because they've created something called $10 a day childcare that doesn't really exist because daycare spaces are closing because they haven't funded the program properly. They talk about how they're going to, create programs that are going to make life better for everybody, but they actually just make it more expensive. And so that's all great. That's Liberal scapegoating at its best, where they make life more expensive by increasing taxes, increasing regulation, increasing the burden of government on everyday decisions that people make. And then they tell you, oh, but you've never had it so good. I talk to people every day who see the rise and the increase in prices, not just at the grocery store, but at the gas pump. We don't have the choice to hop on the subway here. We have to drive our vehicles to work. This government has been punishing, absolutely crippling to rural communities like ours.
Jordy, your response?
Yeah, I think the taxes got cut in response to people's, and I acknowledge that. I think that I love to support food banks, but I would like to see them closed because it's a tragedy, and that has been going on well before the Liberal government. We are here, have 33% of our residences below the poverty line, and it is heartbreaking. And it is frustrating to me. I went to the opening of the latest food bank. I am so grateful they are here. I have used a food bank when I was a small child. So for me, I know very well what these programs do to help people get by, and they are important. And yes, we can do better. But I also know that has been going on in this riding well before the Liberal government. And it's tragedy, and sometimes I think we've politicized it.
But the point you miss though, is that food bank use has skyrocketed in the last few years under Liberal rule. That's the point. Yes, they've always existed, but it's gotten way worse under the Liberal government.
I'm going to cut in and give Heather a chance to respond.
Let Heather respond.
The NDP has brought you Medicare, and they've also are responsible for bringing in the dental and the pharmacare plans. And those are programs that would be cut under a Conservative government, and they need to be, instead of being enhanced, so that those with less means have better health care and can better support themselves moving forward.
You have to let me respond to that because
I will give you 10 seconds.
Heather has now just said that the Conservatives would cut these programs. We've made a commitment to maintain these programs, and in fact, it was the Conservative government under Harper that actually increased healthcare transfers to provinces. For example, it's a Conservative government that promises to create a Blue Seal program to get doctors and nurses who have come to this country and are driving Ubers off that route and getting into the hospitals where people need doctors.
I'm going to cut you off there, Scott. We're going to move on to the next question.
May I respond to it at all?
Sorry, Jordy, we got to move on.
Okay.
We just witnessed 2 historic winter events here in Parry Sound-Muskoka, specifically in South Muskoka, in just a span of 3 months. These events left thousands without power, without food, without water, and questions about how many more times they're going to have to endure these types of living conditions. Climate change is proven to be at the heart of this issue. So, what are you and your party doing to address this issue that continues to impact your constituents at home more and more? Scott, this is your opportunity to start.
Thank you very much for that. Listen, climate change is actually a very real thing. We know that. But the fact of the matter is, the carbon tax has been a tax plan, not a climate plan. What we need to do is we need to start thinking about this as the global issue that it is. The Liberal government has been trying to reduce Canada's footprint while at the same time permitting other countries around the world that have a far worse footprint to continue to pollute. When the German Chancellor was here asking for clean Canadian liquefied natural gas, the Prime Minister said there was no business case for it. When we should be selling the clean Canadian energy to our allies instead of forcing him to have to buy it from a dictator like Putin. And we should be selling our clean energy around the world so China doesn't have to build coal-fired plants anymore. If we erase Canada from the map tomorrow, it would have almost no impact on global climate emissions. But if we sold cleaner Canadian energy to replace dirty energy, it would actually reduce the global footprint and it would make Canadians richer at the same time.
All right, this is your opportunity.
So I believe Prime Minister Carney has already indicated that we can have innovation and that to open those trade routes and trade that LNG for environmentally friendly technology like hydrogen, that Europe is much further ahead of us. He's already made a commitment to preserve the programs that benefit Muskoka. I've checked with all our environmental programs here in Parry Sound-Muskoka. He's already indicated, and I will point out, we are no longer under Trudeau or Stephen Harper's government. We are under Pierre Poilievre's government, and he's made it very clear where he stands on most issues, which is to vote against them.
I like that thought, though. Under Pierre Poilievre's government.
We'll let him continue.
Well, Pierre Poilievre's government, your government, opposition government, and he's made it clear if he gets in power, it will become his government, and he will oppose everything.
You're either the opposition or the government, though,
We're not
so.
going to engage with each other during the answer period. Thank you. We're going to move on to Heather.
Under the NDP government would not bring in a carbon tax. They would put the onus back on the biggest polluters. Canada is one of the 10 biggest polluters on the planet, and we need to have the major corporations that are causing that pollution pay their share, rather than putting that burden on to consumers. We would end the subsidies to most profitable oil and gas companies, and we'd put money back in people's pockets by providing incentives to make our homes and our businesses more environmentally friendly and investing in creating green jobs for the economy.
Thank you, Heather. This is your opportunity. Open floor.
I'd like to say that I think Heather's comments about ending subsidies to oil companies is not a bad idea, actually. I think that the NDP have presented some good ideas. They finally come around on the carbon tax. That's great. What I'm concerned about with the Liberal talking points, though, and Mark Carney specifically, I actually read his book where he actually talks about, the carbon tax not being high enough. In fact, months ago, he was actually debating in a Commons committee that the carbon tax isn't high enough. So now he's reduced it to zero. But the legislation still exists. So I'm not sure I trust Mark Carney to eliminate that legislation. What's to stop him from actually increasing it if he actually forms government again? He's told us over and over again that he loves carbon taxes. He tried to do, this net zero program with Brookfield. Now all the companies have abandoned that enterprise, but he's a big believer in carbon taxes. And he did this little charade in the cabinet meeting where he signed a piece of paper which doesn't really exist in our system, but the law is still there. The law is still there.
I'm going to give Jordy a quick opportunity to respond to that.
So just to be clear, the industrial carbon tax needs to be in place or else we cannot trade with the European Union. So we cannot get rid of the industrial carbon tax. It has to be in place or they will not allow us to trade with them. Secondly, The industrial carbon tax that the EU has put into place has introduced such things as biofuel in airplanes. So it can actually drive innovation at a higher level, because let's be honest, people who want to make money and pollute will keep doing it otherwise. So that is why some of those things need to be in place so we can start trading. The other thing is we also have to be aware of around the world that people are in dire poverty. So we can't just give them LNG gas instead of coal and expect that to change everything. It is a much greater issue. And that is where we have to get into other elements. It's not as easy as that.
Heather,
Thank
quick
you.
opportunity.
We need to invest in, we've talked about oil and gas, we need to invest in transportation. Canada is a huge country, and we're building roads instead of trains in transit. So having better transportation options will serve the country going east and west.
Okay. Candidates, it's been a very good discussion so far. I think this is a good opportunity to take a quick break. We do have another candidate with the People's Party of Canada who would like to have an opportunity to speak. So we're going to break, get a glass of water, take a little breather, and hear from the People's Party of Canada candidate, and we'll be right back with more right after that.
Hello, my name is Isabel Pereira. I am the People's Party of Canada's candidate for Parry Sound-Muskoka. I am a proud Canadian, a wife, mother, grandmother, sister, neighbor, friend. Several years ago, I realized that the political party that I had supported for decades was not truly aligned with my principles and values. That led me to review all political party platforms to determine which one best aligned with my principles and values. After careful consideration, that party was the People's Party of Canada. If you are also concerned about what's happening to our country, I invite you to review all political party platforms to determine which party aligns with your principles and values. If that party is the People's Party of Canada, please join us. There's a quote that inspires me that I'd like to share with you. This quote was written in 1960 by the Right Honorable John G. Diefenbaker. This quote is printed on the Canadian Bill of Rights, and it reads, "I am a Canadian, a free Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship God in my own way, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, free to choose who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind. The time is now. Please join me. Vote PPC, strong and free." Thank you.
And we're back. We're moving on to question number 4. It's been a rousing discussion so far. This one's about crime, which is a very controversial topic in Canada right now. Here in Parry Sound-Muskoka, some believe that crime rates are getting steadily higher, while others believe the current justice system isn't working for dealing with the country's criminal element. What will you do and your party do to ensure that safety is a feeling that many residents in this region can feel once again? And I believe, Jordy, we are up to you next for the answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I'm probably one of the first Liberals to do this in this riding, but I actually have been speaking to the gun owners and hunters in our community about this very thing. I think that's a big concern for them. And one of their sort of answers was obviously focused on the illegal guns that are crossing our border from the US, as well as tightening bail conditions for repeat offenders, as well as the domestic abuse. There are a lot of people in domestic abuse situations who are on weapon charges, and I'm happy to see that we've put forth a plan that focuses on those 3 things, as well as giving money to my uncle, was an RCMP as well, so giving more money to them for those programs. So I think some of those concerns have been heard, and I'm just reflecting what I've heard as well. Thank you.
Heather, you have 1 minute.
We talk about crime, domestic violence, and yet women who are going into the shelter system are, when the shelter is full, they are told, here's money for a tent here in Muskoka. So that we're all worried about crime, but not supporting the victims of the crime. So I think the NDP's focus would be on supporting the victims of crime so that they can go on with their lives better.
All right, Scott.
And the reason for that, Heather, is because under this Liberal government, the criminals have more rights than the victims do, it seems. I talked to an OPP officer about a situation where they arrested a known drug dealer. This person wasn't from Canada. They didn't have a visa. They weren't a citizen. They arrested this person, finally caught them, delivered them to Canada Border Services, and 2 days later they were back in the community selling drugs again. This is insane what's been going on. It's ideologically driven, and it's wrong. We need to put criminals behind bars, and we need to make sure they stay there. We need to back up our justice system. We need to back up the police. The police tell us all the time that they're not backed up to enforce the law. The fact of the matter is, we need to be serious about putting criminals behind bars and keeping them. This Liberal soft on crime and bail not jail program, that has to end.
All right, open discussion for 2 minutes.
Invest the money if you're concerned about drugs, investing money in addictions and reducing the demand for those drugs is a far better effective tool that's been used in Portugal and other places that's legalized drugs and put the money into treatment.
Totally agree with Heather. In fact, that's the problem with the Liberals, drug program. They've got this safe supply program going, but they forgot all the rest of it that Portugal did. Portugal actually had a program where you either go into treatment, which includes some safe supply to get you off of the addiction, to treat your addiction, or you go to jail. So the Liberals just give out drugs, and it's a disaster. And so what the Conservative Party is committing to is ending that idiotic program and actually putting 50,000 spaces, making 50,000 spaces available for treatments, addictions centers. That's a huge investment. But instead of buying free drugs, let's heal people.
Jordy?
Just to be clear, the Liberal government is not giving away drugs, nor buying free drugs. Many of Pierre Poilievre's suggestions as the way to end this have already been challenged and been done before in front of the Supreme Court and struck down. So the removing rights from people has already been, we've done that already, and the courts have already stricken a lot of that down. Heather's absolutely right that treatment programs are a very solid solution, but also we need to talk about housing, because even if you're in a treatment program, once you leave that program, if you do not have a safe space and a community support network, it's very likely you will falter.
Scott, I see you want to respond. Go for it.
Well, I mean, Pierre's talked very specifically about investing federal dollars into 50,000 spaces for addictions treatment. That has not been struck down by any Supreme Court, and this Liberal government has had 9 years to change their course on their disastrous policy. 30,000 Canadians have died because of this policy. We need to get treatment.
All right, I think we're good there. We're gonna, for the next question, switch things up a little bit. We're gonna hear directly from a member of the community who I spoke to earlier this week. We're gonna take a look at that clip right now.
What are you going to do about the economy?
What are you going to do to help the economy? And Heather, you have the opportunity to start here.
The heart of the economy is working people and making sure that people have good paying jobs that allow them to have surplus income, have a living wage, not just a minimum wage. Under the Liberals and Conservatives, the wealthy keep getting further ahead and working people are getting further and further behind. So we would ensure that taxes, our system is fair and supports individuals that are marginalized, and make sure that the wealthy and the billionaires are paying their share.
Scott.
Well, locally, very specifically, I think it's important to support local and buy local and support your community. I think it's important for your federal member of parliament to be working closely with organizations like FedNor to make sure that they're assisting in a meaningful way with loans to help local businesses expand, and I've done much of that, and I'll continue to do that. But it's also about making sure that people keep more of their paycheck. It's also about making sure that a paycheck matters now. Right now, too much of it gets taken away in taxes, and that burden has to be lifted. And so we've committed as well to cut income tax on middle-class Canadians by up to 15%. This could save a dual income family up to almost $2,000 a year.
Jordy.
Yeah, I think we also have a middle class tax cut in place, but I think really for us here locally, if I can speak that, and as a small business owner myself, I think that's really a big focus for me, is to getting them not only the support, but helping them navigate Ottawa. I mean, I've done multi-country co-productions, I've done tax agreements, I have a lot of experience of making those relationships and understanding them and how it works. And I think that's what I can really bring to the table here, is that experience. And I think a lot of these small business owners that I've spoken to are excited. They know it's going to be hard, but I feel that they just need a bit of a door open, a bit of a direction, and they need that story that is currently being told in Ottawa to be changed, to know that we are just a bunch of incredible innovators, and we are literally setting templates for Canadian and international ways of doing things. And so for me, they have the answers. My job is just to advocate for them and help them get what they need, and it's not that much to succeed.
All right, I think, Madam Timer, we're going to skip the debate on this one. We're just going to move on just in the interest of time to the next question. So this one comes through. The candidates, the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion has massively come under fire, especially in the South. This movement was intended to help ensure that minorities that have been overlooked and poorly treated in the past get a fair chance in a country that's meant to give every resident a fair chance in life. What is your stance on the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And what will you do to ensure that every resident in Parry Sound-Muskoka feels represented and respected? And Scott, I believe we start with you on this one.
Thank you for the question. And I would say simply that as a municipal leader, as a councillor, as a mayor, and as the member of parliament continuing, I've always led with diversity, inclusion. That's always been my style, and it continues to be. In fact, I was in the past parliament, the Conservative Party's shadow minister for housing, diversity, and inclusion. And I always tried to lead by example, by engaging in events, by engaging with individuals, but also by standing in the House of Commons and standing up for the rights of all Canadians and all people around the world. There's lots of examples of things that I've done and I will continue to do to stand up for the rights of everybody.
All right, Jordy.
My dad was an immigrant. My wife is an immigrant. I've gone through that experience. All of my colleagues and friends are from all over the world. I've worked all over the world. It is the fabric of who we are, and I'm just worried right now that we are about to lose that we are losing that. I am worried when I go out. I am worried to see what Pierre has kind of brought out in us, and it is personal to me. And I know that we all have to stand up against it. There's not a program there are programs to help it, but ultimately it's up to us to kind of, as Canadians, to embrace that, support that, encourage that. I went to the temple last week, and it was just incredible to see what our Canadian fabric and what our fabric here looks like, and I just don't want that to go.
All right, Heather.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Growing up, I've always been a gender non-conforming person, so I've always been mistaken and misgendered. And it used to be people would kind of do a double take as I went in a washroom, but now I'm getting yelled at if I go into a public washroom. So I'm now looking for family washrooms to use so that I don't get harassed using a washroom. So it's really real for me. But as a white cis woman, I'm also really aware that I don't have all the answers. And so when I was the president of Canada Pride, I brought in leadership councils to bring in the voices of those who are marginalized, because they know what they need to be better supported in our community.
Okay. I think we're going to do just a quick 1 minute debate on this, just to provide some more opportunity just to air out a little bit. So go ahead. If anyone has anything they want to say, if not, we can move on. I feel like we're moving on. Okay.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
The two white cis guys don't want to say
it is what it is, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is what it is. It's an important part.
Okay. We'll move on. We're going to move on to a question from one of our local chambers, and here it is. Will your government consider reforming taxes to facilitate home building? For example, eliminating GST on all housing. Jordy, would you like to answer this from a chamber member?
From a chamber member? Yeah, let's talk about the housing program. I think it's crucial in Canada to build houses. It connects to everything. It connects to healthcare, it connects to community, it connects to all of us. So I think bringing back the federal housing program is an amazing way to do it. It's been done before. And what I'm excited to say is that we have builders right here in our area that are doing it. Just that I have a woman here who builds prefab eco-friendly homes, and she's also running the community trust, which is trying to provide affordable living, and no one knew about her. And so I was just so excited to meet her. She's an expert on it. I made a little movie on her. I kicked it up the chain, and I got in touch with the housing minister, and he called her yesterday, and now she's on the map. And I'm happy to announce that he's coming next week to see what we can do. So I think it's a crucial issue in our region, and we have people to solve it. And I'm just so excited that they're getting on the map, because that's what we should be doing.
Heather.
We'll stop corporate landlords from buying up affordable homes and give nonprofits more funding so that they can ensure housing for those who are houseless. We'll build rent-controlled homes on public land, and we'll support first-time home buyers with CMHC-backed mortgages.
Okay, Scott.
You know, when I was mayor, housing was the top priority. That and saving our hospital. We did a lot of stuff at the local level to, give land away to try to get affordable units built, and we got some built. But what was still a problem was the cost of government. All of this. In Ontario today, 36% of the cost of every home is government. That's local charges. That's tax at the provincial and the federal level. That means nobody makes more money on housing than governments. It's a spectrum. We need investments by the government in social and supportive housing. We need to double what we have, frankly, and that's where we should be investing that kind of money. But the Liberal plan over the last 9 years, which was going to be transformative, has doubled house prices, doubled rent. You can't find a place to rent. And what they do is they have things like a housing accelerator fund that's $4 billion, and they're giving money to cities while those cities also increase their development charges, making it more expensive to build housing. It's backwards. What we need to do is get government out of the way. And that's the only way we're going to make all housing more affordable, and then take that money that's wasted on big cities and invest it where the government must invest it, in social and supportive housing.
All right, open discussion for 2 minutes.
I think there's a clarification to be made. So it's really hard to build affordable housing by private means. So you need to have off-market housing, which allows the federal government to have low-interest loans to allow builders like our eco builder to build over the long term and at a point that can make it affordable. I think the Conservative plan uses a carrot and stick method, where you're incentivizing rapid housing, and if you don't, you get penalized for it. So it really leans into like bigger developers building houses. And the other thing that's kind of, I take issue with that, is you don't really necessarily have a say on how you shape your community. So I think affordable housing is not just a building, it's where it is and how it's structured. And I feel that if you look to countries like Scandinavian countries or France, they are much further ahead of us in how we build affordable housing and make it sort of community integrated.
Scott?
I gotta explain something to Jordy. I know he's, doesn't maybe know all the things that are going on in the community, but the fact of the matter is, it's not that hard for private builders to build affordable housing. I can give you all kinds of examples right here in Muskoka, for example, where there are builders building affordable housing with specific supports to subsidize the cost of that construction. So here's the better thing about private sector building affordable housing. They build affordable units with a bit of assistance for the capital costs from the municipal government, probably the regional government, but they also pay property taxes, which the municipalities are in desperate short supply of, to help support the programs that people living in those units need. They get it built faster, and they get it built better. Now we got Mark Carney promising for the government to get back into building homes. This is a government that can't even deliver a passport on time, and now they're going to come and build a house for us? I don't think I'm going to wait for that.
Heather, did you want to weigh in?
Poilievre's let 800,000 affordable homes be sold off to developers, but he built a grand total of 6 affordable homes.
Housing prices were less than half the price when Mr. Poilievre was involved in housing. The fact of the matter is, there wasn't the issue we have today back then, and provincial governments have been investing in supportive and social housing, and the federal government has been absent because they're giving money to cities that are making it more expensive.
Okay. Great discussion. We're going to move on to the next question. We have had multiple reports in the last few years that Canada is currently undergoing a mental health epidemic that connects to everything from suicide, alcohol and drug abuse, and even domestic and sexual assault. What are you and your party doing to ensure that the mental health of Canadians doesn't continue to slip down the drain? Heather, you have the opportunity to start.
I'm in the last week of my practicum doing, to become a mental health professional, become a registered psychotherapist here in Ontario. Mental health is health, and investing in health is a priority with the NDP, and ensuring that everyone has access to the supports they need in the communities where they are, and not just being warehoused off in other facilities.
Scott.
I agree with everything that Heather just said, and I absolutely applaud her efforts to become trained as a counselor. We need more investments. It's one of the reasons why, as a party, in the last couple of elections, we've focused on mental health and talked about the importance of making investments in mental health, because absolutely, mental health is health. This is an important investment we need to make nationally, but locally, I'm also very involved in supporting local initiatives like Mind Aid, which is a really important organization that helps young people who are struggling to navigate a disjointed and often difficult system to understand. I run a charity golf tournament every year, and we've raised thousands of dollars for Mind Aid. So it's important that we recognize this issue at a national level and work with the provinces to make sure the investments are there and the resources are there, but we also need to be real leaders at the local level too, and I'll continue to do that.
Jordy.
I think it's a massively important issue. I agree with everyone. To Scott's point, at the national level, I worry that Poilievre's voting record on these issues stands, and that he has an obsession with voting against it and an obsession with biological clocks as well. So I think his position has been made very clear, and that the reality is the leaders set the template, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to go against that. For me, locally, I worked and spoke with the YWCA, and they're doing incredible work, and again, they're not getting the support, and they haven't been getting the support that they need for a number of years. And it goes back to advocating in Ottawa to tell our story. It's much more than what they think we are.
We are, out of respect for the issue, we're going to avoid debate on this one, but to bring us back up to time, I'm going to just add a quick little pop-up question in here. This is a higher level question, not really specific to local issues in Parry Sound-Muskoka, but still a concern on many Canadians' minds. We've heard a lot of discussion around NATO, around military spending in Canada, especially with the issues in the south and potentially not being able to rely on our neighbors anymore. Where does your party stand on this current issue of military spending as well as spending into NATO? And Scott, I believe we're starting with you on this.
Yeah, my party's made some very specific commitments about expanding our presence in the Arctic. It's obviously an area that we have neglected as a country, frankly, and so we've committed to making sure we have one permanent military base in the Arctic that's actually operating. We've also committed to doubling the size of the Canadian Rangers in the north, and we've also committed to commissioning a couple more Coast Guard vessels as well. These are important investments that need to be made. But the other thing that I like to point out is that for far too long, military procurement in our country has become just a political punching bag. I mean, we don't make real decisions based on what our country has said. This is what level of service we want to protect us. I'll give you an example. I think it's time to take the politics out of military procurement and make sure that the experts that know what they're talking about have the resources they need to deliver the safety that Canadians demand.
Jordy.
Yeah, it's an important part of who we are as a nation. Remembering Vimy Ridge, that's sort of where we started to become Canada that we know. My grandfather served. Many of my fellow firefighters are serving as well. Currently, even one's on officer training. So I have somewhat of a glimpse into the military, and it is in need of our support and in need of a redefining in this contemporary world. So I'm glad that the Liberals have also decided to start refunding and funding and expanding and putting more money into it. But I also think we are going to take the time to really look at our place on the world stage and see where the Canadian military can stand. Now, to be clear, they're still the best in the world. I think they are as good as any Ranger or SEAL right now. So we're still good.
Heather, where does your party stand on this?
I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth, but as an individual, I can't tell you how heartbreaking it is to see money going to be spent towards building bombs instead of building hospitals and roads. So I'm not sure. I'll figure it out.
Okay. We are pretty much right on time at this point, so we're going to move into the closing statements. But first of all, I really want to thank you all for a very healthy and great discussion, very positive discussion, and very respectful as well. Now, as mentioned, I'm going to give you each 2 minutes to say some final words. As Scott had the opportunity to start, Jordy had the opportunity to answer questions first. That means Heather has the opportunity to end us off. So Heather, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for your time and attention. It's not easy to sit through a debate and actually do our civic duty and be a part of the electoral process. We're all representing our various sides, and I challenge you to be a bit more, not get sucked into the right versus left debate and aim for punching up. Let's go after the oligarchs and make them pay the share so that there are the resources that all of us need to have a better life moving forward.
Okay. Scott, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. This is a consequential election that we're facing. After 9 years of a Liberal government, housing costs have doubled, rent has doubled, mortgage prices have doubled. People can't afford to buy a home. Groceries. Inflation in groceries is higher in Canada than any other G7 nation. Carbon taxes, increasing the capital gains inclusion rate, all kinds of tax increases. This is a government that's never met a tax they don't like. They try to raise taxes and they promise you they're going to make life better, and yet it gets worse. We have to remember that Donald Trump and his insane rhetoric and his policies and his threats of tariffs, they make us weaker because we are already weak. We as a society need to stand up for ourselves, we need to trade with each other, and we need to reduce the burden of government on everyday life while still supporting those who are most vulnerable in our society. And I'll tell you, the Liberals like to talk about supporting those most vulnerable, but things like carbon taxes have only made those most vulnerable in our communities more vulnerable. We need to support people where they need support and then get out of the way. We need to get out of the way of the Canadian entrepreneur, the businesses that we like to talk about. They're so important in our community. You ask any business owner about the burden of government regulation and red tape and taxes and fees and charges and reporting. It's crippling. All the while, the federal government has added 30% more employees and spent $20 billion on consultants at the same time. We need to reduce the burden of government. We need to reduce taxes. We need to reduce the burden on individuals and businesses alike. We can continue on with the same 9 years of failed Liberal policies, or we can elect a new Conservative government that will actually be there for small businesses and individuals. I ask for your support. I want to continue being your Member of Parliament, and I humbly ask you, vote Scott Aitchison.
Jordy?
I don't think you're weak. I think you're incredible. I think you've always been incredible, and I think now we're just reminding ourselves of how amazing we are. Canadians just don't brag enough, but for those of you I've met and spoken to, I know you are doing amazing things, and that I know you are willing to step up and make a difference, just like I'm stepping out right now for our families, for our neighbors, and for our kids. And I believe in all of you, and I think we'll get through this together. I'm here before you because I believe Mark Carney is the right person to lead us through the next 4 years, and they're going to be a tough 4 years, but I am hopefully and very optimistic that when we come out of it, we are going to be an incredible nation and back on the world stage and showing just what we can do. And my worry is that I don't want Parry Sound-Muskoka left behind. I want to be on a seat right next to him, and I want to be getting our voice out there and showing the world how amazing we are. And so I hope that you will join me, and I recognize for some of you that is a very tough decision, and I want you to know that you are all neighbors and friends, and I will equally represent every single one of you, because at the end of the day, we are one community, and I don't want to be divided anymore, and I don't want any more hate. I want us to work together and step up and get back to where we belong, which is an incredible, incredible place to be right here in Parry Sound-Muskoka. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordy. Before we wrap up, we just have a few more minutes. I just want to take a quick opportunity to speak my own thoughts because I know each and every one of you. Some of you I've known for many years. Some of you I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. Some of you I've gotten to know just recently. But I want to make a point clear here that for every one of you, I understand why this matters so much to you to run in this campaign. And I think that you, no matter what happens in the end of this, and no matter what viewpoint you take, you've all stepped up to serve this community in a way that's commendable. And I want to say thank you very much to each of you for taking that opportunity to try to be leaders in the community. That's what we need more of, is people coming forward, speaking their mind, and standing up for what they believe in. So thank you to all of you for that. I appreciate that very much.
Can we encourage everyone to vote?
Yes, I will get to that. I will get to that.
It's an absolute privilege.
If you'll let me finish on that, Jordy, I will absolutely do that. Before I do that quickly, I want to just give a quick thank you to all of our chambers. This was not possible without the partnership of our Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce, our Bracebridge Chamber of Commerce, our Gravenhurst Chamber of Commerce, and our Parry Sound Chamber of Commerce, all partners in this debate today. And I want to give a big thank you to all of them. And of course, once again, to our wonderful and lovely timekeeper, Hallie Clover, with the Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce. Yes, voting is the most important thing that anybody can be doing in this election. Please remember that April 28th is your voting day. You should be getting voter cards in the mail. If you don't, you need to be contacting Elections Canada and finding out where your voter card is. Polls are opening soon, advanced polls are opening soon, but April 28th is your voting day. You should be getting information in the mail. You've heard from these wonderful candidates tonight. You know who you want to vote for. Make sure you head to the polls. It takes literally 10 minutes to go in and vote. It really doesn't take a huge amount of your day, and your vote matters. Every single person in this community's vote matters, because these people are sitting here today to represent you. And if you don't vote for them, they're not going to get in. Thank you very much, folks, for taking the time tonight with chatting us, and good luck with the election.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for watching.